You were born about 6 months before the church was born.
About 6.
The church is celebrating our 11-year birthday.
And I celebrated mine like 6 months ago. I just celebrated my 11 and a half birthday.
So every time the church has been acting crazy over the last 11 years, I've had a model through you of what stage of development the church was at. When it was small, when it was just a baby, we were just trying to get it to not poop all over itself, you know? Like you, trying to shush it, and
So
now to
it's a
see.
great example, but what does that mean, the church is pooping?
I hadn't exactly thought the metaphor through, but go with it.
All right.
You know, I tell you all the time about how there's so much more to the church than what you can see today.
Right.
Like, I wish I could take you back to the early days when the church was first getting started. Because now, like, you see all of these campuses, 14 locations, over 25,000 people coming to church. And that's your normal.
How far did you think you would take the church? Did you ever think you'd get to 25,000?
I didn't know if I'd get to 25.
How much did you think you would get to?
I hoped we would reach thousands of people. One thing that I remember when you were a baby was that we went over to the facility that we were going to meet in. Me and Mr. Chunks went over to see the grand opening of it. It wasn't our building, but we were just going to meet there. It was a senior center. I thought we would be there 5 or 6 years. It seated maybe 300 people, and I told Chunks, well, we could do 2 services in here. That would get us up to 500 or 600 people. We could be here 5 or 6 years, and we had outgrown it in 5 to 6 months.
I've seen tapes of you back when you used to have to stand up here and lead worship. I don't really consciously remember seeing it, but I've heard about them, and I've heard your first albums, and I just gotta say, they weren't so great, but I mean, Most Improved Award.
I persevered.
You persevered, you did it.
I remember one thing that I thought would be crazy if we saw like 100 people baptized in our first 10 years of the church. Well,
Wow.
11 years in, yes, that's how I was thinking. To me, that would be massive.
100?
I thought 100 people in 10 years would be amazing. Because I had been in churches before where 5 people getting baptized in a year would have been like revival. It would have been like the day of Pentecost.
That's so crazy to me because now we've baptized like over 10,000 people.
Over 13,000 in 11 years. Normally, the pastor is having to beg people to volunteer.
Right.
Hey, help out in the children's ministry. Here we have over 7,000 active volunteers at the church.
Wow.
Which is crazy, because you've seen the town I grew up in, Moncks Corner.
It's a pretty small town.
Well, it's grown now, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, because when I was there, we didn't even have a Super Walmart. And they didn't get an Applebee's until I went off to college.
Really?
Really. Tragic, huh?
Tragic. I mean, how do you live without Applebee's?
Well, you make do. You figure it out. You go to Gilligan's Seafood Restaurant instead. But the point is, there were about 6,000 people that lived in Moncks Corner when I was growing up there. And so I'm telling you that just to give you a frame of reference. Now, there are more people that serve at Elevation Church just 11 years in than there were people who lived in the town I grew up in.
Wow. I actually got to be a parking volunteer when I went to Melbourne, and it was very hard.
What did you think about it?
I think I definitely respect the parking people more. I mean, if parking people are watching this, respect.
But what was that like to go to Melbourne, Florida, which is one of now 14 locations, and to see people just
Packing in.
packing in?
So, like, we had this one parking lot where we were supposed to park people in, like, the middle lane. We filled up the middle lane, the right lane, the left lane. Then we had to walk, like, I don't know, 3 blocks down to this other building, just, like, overflowing. And there were people, like, standing outside of the doors and having, like, Jesus moments.
There are communities now, like Winston-Salem is one, where people are begging us to come start an Elevation Church. People regularly write me letters and say, our family moved to Charlotte from Arizona, our family moved to Charlotte from Houston, Texas, just to be a part of Elevation Church. We wanted to be
That's
in on this
crazy.
move. It's crazy. And I don't know that you will ever fully understand that, but I just hope you don't take for granted some of the things that make this church special. And I hope you don't ever take for granted that different kinds of people coming together to worship side by side, Black people and white people, and Hispanic people and old people and young people and people from all kinds of economic classes worshiping side by side. I mean, if you went to our different campuses, you would see all kinds of different people, different complexions, the diversity of it, but all with one mission. And I think you think that's normal because you've never seen anything different. To you, that's just church. We've seen over 500,000 outreach hours served at our church. Over $25 million has been given in outreach.
Do you feel like now that we've reached this point that we're at the ceiling or that we're just setting the stage?
I mean, the way I try to pastor the church, honestly, is that when you and Graham and Abby are adults, you will be proud of the church that your parents built.
But I'm proud now.
Yeah, but you're 11 now. You know, you're not even a teenager yet. What I get excited about is if this is the foundation that we're laying, I tell you this all the time, like, what could it be in 10 years? What will it be like when you're 36 like me? We're 11. The church is 11 like you. And look what God has already done. And I don't want you to ever take it for granted. I don't want you to ever be so close to it that you don't see like, this is special, this is amazing. And I think for me, I don't want to ever take it for granted that I get to be the pastor of people who would be so loving and so generous and so focused. It's the privilege of a lifetime.